Welcome back, everyone, to Senior Care Insights here on YouTube, your one-stop shop for all things healthy aging. We're going deep today into some really interesting changes that men go through as they get older.
Absolutely. We often talk about the big health challenges, but these smaller shifts can be super insightful too. They really tell a story about how our bodies change over time.
Totally. So we put together four, key changes that guys might find, surprising. We're not talking serious illnesses, but more like the everyday changes our bodies go through.
Mhm.
Things you might not automatically connect with aging, like smell, even the size of certain, body parts.
I think what makes understanding these things so important is it gives you a sense of control. It's not just noticing them, it's understanding the biology behind them. That way you can take charge of how you age.
100%. So today we're shedding light on those four signs. We're going to dig into the why, the science behind it all, and really importantly, give you some tips and tricks to deal with these changes, proactively and feeling more in control. So are you ready to jump in?
Let's do it. What are we starting with?
Let's kick things off with something you might not link with aging right away. Smell. Now, this isn't about, hygiene or what cologne you use. It's way more basic than that, a change that happens in the skin itself as men age.
The interesting part is the specific compound behind this change in smell. As men age, their skin starts to produce more something called non-enanal.
Non-anal. Sounds kind of technical, but its effects are pretty obvious,
Hmm.
especially to those around us. The smell is often described as, kind of grassy, waxy sometimes, maybe a little stale. It's different from that regular body odor we get from sweat after a workout, right?
Exactly. That's a really important point to understand. It's not just the usual bacteria breaking down sweat. It's actually the breakdown of fatty acids on the skin. And what drives this breakdown is something called oxidative stress, which tends to increase with age. You can kind of think of it like wear and tear at a cellular level.
Oxidative stress, that's something we hear a lot about in health discussions. So fatty acids break down, non-enol is produced, and that's the culprit behind this particular smell. But why does it seem to linger?
Well, the fascinating thing about non-enol is it really likes to stick to both our skin and clothes. Unlike, some of the compounds in sweat that are water soluble, non-anisole doesn't wash away easily with just regular soap. Plus, as skin ages, it tends to hold onto these oxidized fatty acids a bit more, which can make the scent stronger over time.
That explains why someone could be super clean and still have this, distinct smell. Our research says for a lot of guys, this non-enol production increases after 40, and it becomes way more noticeable in their 70s.
Yeah, that timeline lines up with the general slowing down of skin cell renewal and just the effects of oxidative stress building up over the years.
We even found this example of a 74-year-old guy, Richard. His granddaughter described his smell as like books and wood. It just shows that it's not necessarily a bad smell, just different, something you might associate with, getting older.
I love that description. It really gets across that this isn't a hygiene issue, just a natural characteristic. So the big question, I think, is what can you do to maybe minimize this non-optimal buildup?
Well, there are some helpful strategies out there. First, using soap that really cuts through excess oils can make a big difference. Like charcoal soap, ones with salicylic acid or oatmeal, those tend to have a, deeper clean.
Yeah, those types of cleansers are generally better at breaking down and removing those lipid buildups on the skin.
Second, eating foods rich in antioxidants can also help. Green tea, citrus fruits, leafy greens are all packed with stuff that fights oxidative stress at a cellular level. We even saw a study from 2021 that said a diet high in antioxidants can lower oxidative stress by, get this, 15%.
That makes sense. If you can tackle that underlying oxidative stress, you're hitting one of the root causes of non-optimal production in the first place.
Now, when it comes to clothes, just regular laundry detergent might not cut it. Our sources suggest adding baking soda to the wash or using odor-neutralizing sprays specifically made for aging skin. These can break down and remove those non-cityl molecules.
Those are great practical tips for dealing with non-cynyl once it's there. But what about bigger lifestyle choices?
Well, as always, hydration is key. 8 glasses of water daily can keep your skin healthy. It might help flush out some of those, metabolic byproducts. And don't forget about managing stress and not smoking. Both of those can add to oxidative stress in a big way.
For sure. Taking a holistic approach with diet, skincare, and lifestyle is probably the best way to manage the sign of aging.
So moving on to our second sign. Let's shift gears and talk about a part of the body a lot of guys notice: changing the waistline, that extending belly that just won't budge no matter how much you diet or exercise.
It's a common worry, and it's important for everyone listening to realize it's often more than just what you eat or how active you are.
Right. While those things matter, there are also internal changes happening as men age that contribute to that stubborn belly fat, like the natural slowing down of metabolism we all experience as we get older.
That slower metabolism means you burn fewer calories when you're just relaxing, making it easier to store extra energy as fat.
And on top of that, we see a decline in muscle mass as men age. Muscle burns more calories than fat, even at rest. So less muscle means a slower metabolism overall. And then there's the hormonal changes, especially the decrease in testosterone.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Testosterone helps maintain muscle mass and can impact how our body distributes fat. As testosterone levels naturally decline, and our sources say it could be by about 1% per year after 40, which adds up, storing fat, especially in the belly, becomes easier.
So even if you're eating well and exercising regularly, you might still notice your waistline growing just because of these internal changes. We heard from Frank, he's 76, and he was always lean in his younger days. But he noticed his belly getting bigger while his arms and legs were getting thinner, even though his diet hadn't really changed.
Frank's story is so common, it shows it's not about lack of willpower. But what's really crucial to understand about this excess belly fat is the health risks that come with it.
Right. It can lead to some serious conditions like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even cognitive decline. A Harvard study from 2022, mentioned in our research, found a link between belly fat and a much higher risk of cognitive decline in men over 60, like a 30% increase.
The problem with belly fat is it's not just sitting there, it's metabolically active, meaning it releases inflammatory chemicals into the bloodstream, and those can negatively affect your heart health and brain function.
So it's not about the number on the scale, it's about the type of fat and where it's located. What can you do to tackle this belly fat then?
One great approach is resistance training, things like lifting weights or body weight exercises, squats, for example. These help fight that natural muscle loss and can actually speed up your metabolism over time. We even found a study that showed a huge reduction in belly fat for older men doing regular resistance training, like 10% in just 6 months if they do it 3 times a week.
Wow, that's fantastic news. Of course, diet's important too. The research emphasizes eating enough protein from good sources like chicken, eggs, lentils. The target is around 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight each day to help maintain that muscle mass.
Protein is key for muscle repair and growth, and it keeps you feeling full for longer, which helps with weight management.
On the flip side, it's important to watch those processed carbs and added sugars. They can cause insulin spikes, and that leads to storing fat, particularly around the belly. A study in 2021 found that cutting back on processed carbs led to a 15% drop in belly fat over 12 weeks for older adults.
Absolutely. Keeping those insulin levels stable is super important to stop that visceral fat from building up.
And just like with the first sign, staying hydrated, 8 glasses of water a day, is really important for your metabolism to function properly.
No doubt. Hydration supports everything in the body, including how we break down and use fat.
Now, let's move on to a sign that's a bit more subtle and maybe a little surprising. It's that our ears actually continue to grow as we get older.
This is one of those things you might not notice day to day, but when you compare old photos to now, it can be quite a difference.
Exactly. The shape doesn't change dramatically, but the overall size does. The reason for this is cartilage, that flexible stuff in our ears.
The cool thing about ear cartilage is that, unlike a lot of other tissues in the body, it never stops growing.
That's right. So every year, it gets a tiny bit bigger, which over decades can add up to a noticeably larger ear. One study from 1995 even suggested that ears can stretch by a tiny but measurable amount each year, about 0.22 millimeters.
And it's not just the cartilage growing. Gravity also plays a part in how our ears look as we get older.
Right, that constant pull can stretch the ears out a little, making them look longer and bigger than they were when we were younger.
And then there's the skin around the ears. As we age, it loses some elasticity because our bodies produce less collagen. And our research says that after 30, collagen levels can drop by about 1% each year.
That loss of elasticity can especially cause drooping earlobes, making the whole ear seem bigger and longer. We heard from George, who's 70 out. He was amazed when he looked at his wedding photos and saw how much bigger and longer his ears had gotten, with thinner, more stretched out earlobes.
Yeah, George's experience is very normal. It's such a slow change that it often goes unnoticed until you compare photos side by side. And it's important to remember that growing ears aren't usually a medical problem.
Exactly. It's a natural part of aging and doesn't mean anything's wrong. But for some guys, it might be something they'd like to, minimize cosmetically. Yeah. Are there ways to do that?
Well, you can't really stop cartilage from growing, but maintaining good skin elasticity can help with the drooping. So, drinking enough water is important here too, those 8 glasses a day.
Our sources also mention that eating foods that boost collagen production might help. Things like fish and nuts, they have stuff that helps build collagen in our skin.
Hmm.
A study from 2020 even found that eating those kinds of foods improves skin elasticity in older adults by about 12%.
That's really interesting. And protecting your skin from too much sun is important too. UV radiation can break down collagen faster, so wearing sunscreen with at least SPF 30 on your ears every day can help a lot.
And lastly, using moisturizers and skincare with vitamins on your earlobes might help keep them looking their best and maybe reduce some of that thinning and wrinkling that can happen.
All of that's about keeping the skin around the ears healthy and resilient, which can indirectly affect how they look as we age.
Okay, our fourth and final sign takes us to the legs, specifically the calf muscles, which often get smaller and change shape as men get older.
Yeah, this is another very common thing we see with aging called muscle atrophy, basically the gradual loss of muscle mass.
Right. One day you might notice those calves that used to be strong and defined are now thinner and not as shapely.
Mhm.
What causes that?
Well, one big factor is the natural decrease in hormones, especially testosterone and growth hormone. These are key for keeping our muscles strong, and their levels tend to go down after middle age.
The research says those hormone levels could drop by 1 to 2% every year after 50, which definitely impacts muscle over time. And then there's the fact that many people aren't as active as they used to be, especially when it comes to exercises that work the calves specifically.
Even if you walk or do other exercises, if you don't specifically target your calves, they can weaken and lose mass.
And changes in the circulatory system can contribute too. Sometimes blood flow to the legs decreases as we age, which can affect how nutrients and oxygen reach the muscle tissue. We heard from Robert, he's 75, and he had really strong calves his whole life. But in his late 60s, they started to thin out and weaken, and that impacted how well he could move around.
Robert's story shows how important those calf muscles are. Weak calves can affect your balance, increase the risk of falls, and even slow you down when you walk. One study even linked low calf muscle mass to a 40% higher risk of falls for older adults.
Wow, falls are a serious concern, especially as we get older. So what can you do to slow down or maybe even reverse that muscle loss in the calves?
Doing exercises that specifically target the calves is key. Calf raises, where you lift yourself up onto the balls of your feet, are a really effective and simple exercise that almost anyone can do. Even adding a few of those to your day can make a difference.
And research shows that older men who did calf raises regularly, like 3 times a week, saw their calf strength increase by 18% in just 2 months. You can also use resistance bands to make those calf exercises more challenging.
Resistance bands are great because they provide that progressive overload, which is important for stimulating muscle growth. Brisk walking, especially uphill, is good too because it naturally works the calves and helps with circulation in the legs.
And just like with any other muscle group, making sure you get enough protein from good sources like meat, eggs, fish is crucial. Our research suggests aiming for around 25 grams of protein per meal to support muscle maintenance and repair.
Exactly. Protein provides the building blocks for those muscles, so getting enough is super important, especially when you're trying to fight muscle loss. Staying hydrated helps with blood flow, which, like we said, is important for healthy muscles. And stretching your calves regularly can improve flexibility and reduce any stiffness you might have. One report even found that stretching can decrease stiffness by about 15%.
So there are things you can do to prevent those calves from thinning out and maintain strength and mobility in your legs as you age.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that even though some age-related changes are natural, there's a lot we can do to influence how they progress by making healthy lifestyle choices.
So there you have it. We took a deep dive into 4 subtle but important signs of aging in men. The distinct smell, that stubborn belly, the growing ears, and those thinning calves.
Understanding these changes can really empower you to take control. It helps you see what's happening in your body and think about what you can do to stay healthy and feel good as you get older.
We hope you learned some useful strategies today that you can start using in your daily life. We'd love to hear what you think about all of this. Tell us in the comments below, which of these signs have you noticed in yourself or others?
We really appreciate hearing your thoughts and experiences. And if you found this deep dive helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone who you think might find it useful. Leave a comment too, and let us know what you thought.
And most importantly, if you want to stay updated on future deep dives about healthy aging, subscribe to Senior Care Insights and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything.
We're so glad you joined us for this deep dive, and we look forward to continuing this journey of understanding and empowerment with you. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.